Alexandra, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, how can I help today?
I am just calling about a workplace conflict I have with one of my superiors. It's not my direct boss, but it is the boss above her, basically.
Hmm.
So just to jump right into what my issue is I am frequently overloaded with work, given directly from this boss, and I frequently have days where I'm going over the agreed upon 8 hours. So I'm salaried
Wow.
with this company. It's a newer company, and very much when I signed on, it was clear that my position was pretty flexible. Even though it's an 8 hour work day, I set up my own meeting with clients and with other members of the teams, and it was kind of sold to me as having quite a bit of flexibility within that work day to get my work done and meet with folks that I need to meet with.
Hmm.
But as we've gone on and things have gotten a little busier for this company, I have just continually had more and more added to my plate. I've tried to kind of express this to my direct boss, but it's not, the workload is really coming from her boss. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of in a tough position where in order to really get anything done on this front, I have to go over my direct report's head, which is a bit tense. And then when I do express this to the boss who's giving me the workload, she kind of just says, "Well, we encourage boundary setting here, and you should feel free to go ahead and set your work day and stop working when you're done." Which would be all well and good, but then when I'm not getting the work done and other folks are coming to her and saying, you know, where's this? Why hasn't this XYZ been done yet? She then comes to me and asks me why it hasn't been done yet.
Yeah.
And so I'm just having a bit of trouble navigating this. And then when I did again bring it up to her, her solution for me was for me to track my productivity. So we don't have any software for this currently. So essentially that means me like taking more time out of what I already have to do to remember to start a clock. And most of our software doesn't even run efficiently enough for me to complete one task. It's like I'll start a task that has to load. Something takes 7 years to like pull up certain data points that I'll need. And so it's not even that straightforward. So it really just feels like she's
Yeah.
kind of kicking the can down the road. Um,
Yeah, she needs the work done, but she doesn't have a clear solution as to like how to keep your boundary, how to support you in keeping your boundaries.
right.
So she's just throwing ideas out. Okay, so let me just
Yeah.
understand because there's a couple of main things going on here. So number one is there's what we might call level skipping. So let me ask you this from the start: was the expectation that you were going to get directions and assignments from the boss of your boss, or did you think that you were just going to be managed by your boss directly?
I think that the one of the issues is maybe that the my boss's boss, that's a recent, as the company's grown, she used to manage directly everyone, and now there's kind of that intermediary
Oh,
that's a
that
new position.
so
So
okay.
yeah,
So you used to work directly for your boss's boss, but then they added in your boss as a middle manager, and that's new in terms of the relationship between you and your boss's boss.
essentially yes. There were two folks
Okay,
in her position, so I didn't report to her, and then they so not directly to her, but she did manage my
got it.
title. Yes.
Okay, so she hasn't released the reins on giving you things to do,
Exactly.
even
And
though they
then
brought it. Okay,
exactly. And then the person I directly report to doesn't really have a lot of say. I think she's supposed to be holding, like managing these issues, but I
right.
think she can't really because she doesn't have a lot of wiggle room because her boss is kind of saying, having the final say on
Yeah.
all of that, if that makes sense.
How can she step in and tell her boss not to give you any more work, even though
Right.
that's kind of the thing that's supposed to be happening? Okay,
Right.
so the level skipping thing is an interesting one, and it kind of bleeds over into the second major issue, which is there's too much on your plate potentially. Like there's
Yeah.
just too much. If you can't get your work done in a normal day, then essentially there's too much, and then other people are counting on it, and it's unclear like when they're going to get it, and so you feel like you have to work long hours in order to get the things done for the rest of your team.
Yes.
Okay. So on the latter front, let's start with there. So the one thing that I've suggested in the past, and this is, it's only difficult to the extent that it takes some effort to implement. I highly recommend, especially when you're in a job that's busy and there's a lot on your plate, I highly recommend having some sort of tracking system for the projects you're working on, if that's possible. I am not a fan of tracking your minutes or seconds or whatever on every project that you're on, because it just seems like you said, it just seems that's a lot of time and effort just to track, like, how did I spend 15 minutes on this and 20 minutes on that? Like, that just seems like a lot of time wasted. But I am a fan of saying, hey, this person gave me this project, this person gave me this project, this person gave me these 3 projects. These are all the projects I'm working on, and putting them all in some central space where other people can see what you're working on, and giving very reasonable timelines and expectations about what the due dates are for each of those things, so that if you've got 3 things on your plate already and someone comes to you and says, hey, I got this other thing for you, and these 4 people are counting on it, you could say, okay, well, here are the 4 things that are on my current project sheet. Here are the timelines. You can see them all. They're all in this spreadsheet, or they're all in this CRM or whatever the project management tool is. They're all in here. Would you like me to prioritize this above these? Because if I do, then these other ones will get pushed down. And if not, then this one I'll deliver in 3 weeks. Like that kind of thing. So everybody is super clear on the timeline for everything that you're working on.
Yeah.
Is there anything like that already happening? Or would that be helpful if that was in place?
We do have a few things in place. I think that would be helpful. I think the other issue is that a lot of the soft, without getting too much in the weeds, a lot of the accounts I'm on are just pieces of the product that are essentially in beta. So it's a little difficult for me to even tell how long certain things are going to take.
Oh, right.
It's a newer company, they're building a lot of tools as we go. So a lot of things I'm sort of one of the folks who's on accounts that are testing. So again, if part of that breaks, it's a lot of back and forth. So I think that would though be helpful, and then I could go in and just make notes if things do break down along the way or pieces of the product aren't working. At least I have somewhere to track that, I think, and that's what I haven't been doing. So I think that would be helpful, just to have that centralized.
I've seen this be helpful for keeping people on the same page. Everybody's transparent about what they're working. Sometimes, your boss comes to you and says, hey, I want you to work on this, this, and this. And they forgot that they even gave you the other 3 jobs to work on or something. Right? So they don't understand what's going on in your day-to-day. Are you remote? Do you work remotely or?
Yes, I do. There's an office, but again, this boss is at the office, and I typically don't like to go in, partially because she kind of will, like, she doesn't take lunch breaks. She sits at her desk the whole day, so it's a little uncomfortable. And then, even just to get up and get water, I feel like I'm being watched. So I usually
you
work
don't want to
from
be
home.
monitored. Yeah. Well, so listen, especially when you're in a remote position, it's really important to have a lot of transparency on kind of what you're working on, because then sometimes they don't realize how many hours you're spending on certain things. If you were able to put down even if it's just an Excel spreadsheet or a shared Google spreadsheet, and you were just to say, here are the different overall projects I'm working on. This is one's in beta, so we don't really know there's no end date or due date really on it. It's just a matter of, this is how many hours typically I'm spending on this every week. If you were to put that together and said, I estimate that I'm spending 4 hours on this thing every week, I'm spending 8 hours on this thing every week, and you put those all together and be, mindful of your boundaries and also generous with your time. Like, if you think you spend 2 hours, I spend 3 hours. Be generous with your flexibility.
Okay.
And then you bring that to your boss and you say, here are all the things I'm working on. You can see that this is, at this point, 50 hours a week. I need to figure out how to reduce this, or I need to get some help. But that way is it a she?
Yes.
So that way she could see it on paper in front of her, and maybe sit down and brainstorm with you, work with you a little bit. Okay, I didn't realize that much was on your plate, or I didn't realize that this was taking this long, and we can talk about that and brainstorm. Do you think that would be helpful to put something like that together?
I do think that would be helpful, and then I also think that would maybe even allow her to, if she's willing, and I don't know, but to take something to the engineering team and kind of see where there are kinks in the process and what's taking our team so long to get things done for our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it could be a great, even just a great conversation starter about why things are taking so long.
Totally.
So
yeah.
that could be one good action step. We see how that goes.
Yeah.
On the level skipping front, does it seem like they think it's a problem, or is this like, okay, this is the status quo now?
I think it's a matter of my direct boss trying to advocate for us in ways that her boss doesn't really care to hear. And so then she kind of just does okay, well, I'll go manage it myself. Or, in this case, I mentioned this to my, direct boss multiple times. Like every meeting, I was like, I have too much. And she would say, okay, I'll bring it up. Okay, I'll bring it up with her. I'll bring it up with my boss. And she clearly didn't. And she clearly just kind of ignored it. And so then eventually I was like, okay, well, I have to, I'm not getting work done. This is affecting other teams. This is affecting my clients. So I just eventually had to go right to her boss. And then she, again, gave me the solution of tracking like minute by minute my tasks, which really just kind of adds more to my plate and is a difficult thing to do with the state of our software right now.
On the one hand, in terms of level skipping, could you go to your boss and say, hey, I'm noticing I'm getting tasked with things directly from, this other person. Do you feel like it would be okay or would be appropriate for me to have a direct conversation with her? And I'm happy to involve you about, this setup. If you could talk to her and say, my understanding or my expectation was that I was going to be managed by this individual now, and I was going to be assigned things and that kind of thing. But it seems like I'm continuing to be assigned things by you as well. So is that the status quo? Is that what I should expect going forward? Or is this a slow transition? Tell me what I can expect.
So that would actually probably be helpful. So the reason I'm getting things from the direct boss is I'm on some of the accounts and clients that we have that are using parts of the product that are, being tested with these specific clients. So that's who I manage, and that is why my boss, or my boss's boss, is more involved in my business. I suppose I should have clarified that. I do know why she is, but I really should ask for some clarity around when I do encounter issues, who do I go to?
That's a really good question.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, because if it's ambiguous as to who is your real direct boss, who do you go to? So that's important.
Yeah, okay, is it a matter of like new pieces of software, I go to one boss, and then anything that's standard, I go to the other. I don't really have a lot of clarity around that right now, and that would be really helpful. So okay, definitely, yeah.
Great. Okay, so the action items then are, number one, creating some sort of sheet where everyone can see what you're working on, how many hours those are, and that can start the conversation about, what's on your plate. And then the second piece is having that conversation about what to expect in terms of who's giving you work, and also who you should go to for certain projects or certain tasks. Essentially, who do you report to, and making sure that everyone's clear on the expectations there.
Yeah. And then I wonder, if I don't get a whole lot of clarity from them on that, should I just sort of delineate what I think makes sense to and then that way at least I have some sort of order? Or I wonder what would be the next.
I would suggest that if you don't get a lot of clarity, then create the clarity that you think it makes sense and is appropriate for this dynamic. And I would just say, email that to both of them and say, here's what I plan to do going forward. Please let me know if you want to make any changes to that. So everybody's on the same page.
Great. Yeah, great. Yeah. That would be helpful. Okay.
Great. All right. Was that helpful?
Definitely. Yeah. I think at least I have some action items to go forward, and, hopefully that works, because right now it's a bit stressful.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, hopefully that helps, and would love to hear the aftermath if you want to come back on at some point.
Great. Yeah, I will. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexandra. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Hey, thanks for tuning into the Peacebuilding with Dr. Pollack show. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more workplace conflict advice. Share on social media if you think your friends and colleagues would benefit from this episode. And if you have a workplace conflict and want to be a caller on our show for free coaching and advice, please email podcast@pollackpeacebuilding.com. Thanks.